Okay, so first and foremost, ADHD Trackher.
Yep.
Perfect game, by the way. Really, really fun. When I had a chance to play it over at Pax South, so I was really impressed with that. Just how fluid it was. Because now with games, especially ones that are super developed and super, like money just cranking
Polished.
into it, yeah,
Right, right.
it's not coming out super well done. So with something that was really, really fluid with ADHD, that was really, really good to play. So
Right on.
I was really happy with that. But why the name though, ADHD?
So a dual hand disaster tracker is basically like it's gone through kind of a couple of different names when I first started it. Originally, it was called dual hand disaster movement.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole idea was always like the idea of your hands dueling with each other kind of thing,
Okay.
which is a reason why the duel is spelled Duel. And I always get people asking like, "Hey, did you know you misspelled duel?" And I'm like, no, it's kind of meant to be that way.
I did it on purpose.
Right on, yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was like when I first started the game, it was only because I uh, kind of didn't really know what I was going to call it, so I just called it something, and it was like also a reference to a band that I liked called Dance Disaster Movement.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I just kind of just threw the name together really quick or whatever. But then after a while, like of just working on the game, as with everything else, you kind of start to refine it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And because of the crazy notion of everything being all over the place, uh, I noticed that it was like someone told me that this is like you had ADHD or whatever. And I was like, wait a minute. And I started looking at the acronym of the game, and it was like DHDM at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought if I add the A in there, it'd be ADHD. And then I just started messing with the name or whatever, and it just came out that way. But the tracker part came from putting emphasis on the right ship because it's a she, it's a he and a she, right?
Okay.
And so it's just a play on the word, obviously.
Yeah.
Tracker. So it's just the idea of like, track her because she's the most important ship. If she dies, game's over.
Yeah.
You wipe everything. So
Okay.
yeah, it just evolved into that basically.
So it's just an acronym for the title, pretty much.
Right. And what was
Okay.
really funny is if you don't mind me expanding on that just a bit.
No, you take all the time you want. So
Cool.
you're good.
Yeah, and if I babble, of course, just by all means interrupt me or stop me or
Hey,
whatever.
this is your interview as much as it is mine. So you're good to go.
Awesome. So yeah, basically I submitted to I can't remember what event it was, but it was something in Seattle. And I was like, they give you feedback and everything, which I think is awesome. It was pretty rad. But it's just like, goddamn fucking hippies, man. Like someone wrote back and they're like super hardcore, like offended that it was called ADHD because I might be offending someone who had ADHD. And I'm like, I never thought of that. The game was just named that, you know what I mean? So
Exactly,
I just thought it was funny. That someone would take offense to something like that. I mean, it's just a game. Like, let it go.
It's a game, exactly. Like it's meant to entertain, it's meant to be fun, it's meant to be enjoyed by a broad audience, and that's honestly the thing that I think is lacking with a lot of games nowadays is that it's supposed to be for a broad audience. It's not meant for a specific person, and granted, if it is going to possibly offend a specific person, it's just
Right.
like, okay, I mean, there are other good things about it, and you can choose not to play it, but
Right.
I mean, I guess kind of with the devil's advocate here, it is
Yeah, yeah, of
really
course.
kind of like the responsibility of the developers to kind of think about that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's just I don't know, just something like that, just the whole broad scape, of the gaming community, So
Well, and that's kind of the whole idea, man, is like throughout showing the game at so many different events. Actually, at GDC one time when I was showing it, I actually got because GDC is like the nerdiest of nerdist like conventions, right? So
Oh,
you
yeah,
got
yeah.
people who are legit like into like psychology or whatever and games and stuff. So they're like super smart. And I would get people also that would come down and would check out the game, and they would be on the opposite spectrum of that like offensive part and be like, have you ever thought of using this game to study, like help people study how they, track things and whether someone can focus on different things at once? And of course, on that same line, I'm just like, no, I just try to make a video game.
exactly,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm just making a video game. Like everyone else is kind of taking what they want from it. You know what I mean?
They're putting it into their world type of deal.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they're taking it in their context where like it has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm trying to do, which is it honestly, like that's been the coolest thing of making this thing is just seeing like the way like different people interact with it in different ways, you know? Some people get the super subtle things that I throw in there. Some people absolutely do not. Some people catch on to things that, again, like I kind of subconsciously maybe threw in there. And yeah, it's intense, dude. Like just watching people see something that you've created from scratch just turn into something like that is intense.
So when you do say subtle things, what do you mean with the subtle things? What subtle things are you talking about in the game?
So one thing in particular is the idea of how the left side is invincible, right? Yeah. So you have the dude basically, and then the she on the right side. How basically, and I never thought of it this way in terms of like, oh, I'm going to design it like this. But someone brought it up once at an event where they're like, is this like the dude is basically like invincible and just kind of like, what is it? You know, like just kind of like, you know, protecting her. Yeah. And however, since she's the only one that can die, it's like if she dies, it's like his world is over too. So that's why the whole game just ends.
Like a Romeo and Juliet situation.
What's that?
Like a Romeo and Juliet situation.
Yeah, and dude, so that's the crazy part is I love Romeo and Juliet, like absolutely 100%. So it's just like you start to see these things that like, you know, obviously I designed the game that way, but I didn't think going in like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like a Romeo and Juliet thing or you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome because someone else took your interpretation and again, like, you know, was taking their own interpretation of it and then but it still meshes somehow. It's just that kind of stuff just blows me away, man.
That's crazy. That's so cool.
Other stuff isn't as subtle in the game, obviously, but that's forced, of course. But at the same time, most of it, like stuff like that is just like mind-boggling.
No, that's really cool because like I was thinking something like that along the lines too when I was reading into it with the game. I was like, okay, so she can be attacked and the dude cannot be essentially attacked or like killed, but she's needed to make him essentially keep going. And then if she is not doing what, you know, like the what she needs to do for finding the items and all that stuff, you know, and avoiding and everything like that. It's kind of like your sneaky little like stealthy mission almost. And then your left side is kind of like your die hard, like first person shooter, like go get it, you know, type of deal. So I thought that was really cool.
That's also really cool, dude, because again, it does also even split my interest in terms of games where I love Metal Gear Solid, but I also love Call of Duty.
Gotcha.
You know, like it's just like this chaos and destruction, but also at the same time I like to take my time and kind of like, you know,
figure all the options and everything.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. So then speaking on style of game, what is then dual hand tracker or disaster tracker? Excuse me. What kind of genre is it then? Is it kind of like an indie like Galaga type of deal, or is it more of like, you know?
Well, also, again, this goes back to the evolution of just the game, but I ended up, when I would go to all these events and I would describe it to people, it started as a big fucking mess trying to explain it to people. But then I started over and over again. Actually, my buddy Zach, who works at 17-Bit, he's the one who actually brought it up to me. He's like, dude, every time I'm with you and you're describing the game to someone, like every other time I hear you describe it, you start to pinpoint exactly what the game is, which is really rad. And so I ended up coming down to basically describing it to people as a split screen, single player, twin stick risk 'em up.
Nice.
And so I call it a risk 'em up in short, you know, because that I think makes the most sense because it's a shoot 'em up at the same time, but it's a risk 'em up because obviously you're familiar with that, the whole idea of, you know, calling it to keep what you have. Because that was the thing that I wanted to keep in the game as like a core mechanic was most of these games that have a score-based games, which I love, end up being like you end up being brain dead to a certain extent because you're like just playing them and then you die and you keep your score and you kind of just jump back in and do the same thing. There's no real like risk involved, right? You're just kind of like going to get the highest score. So in this game, obviously the whole point is like you call it, Otherwise, if you die, you wipe everything. So
Okay.
yeah. Long story short, I would call it a risk 'em up.
Nice. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, like the new shirts I've designed for because I'm going to be at a couple of events in March. Like the new design for the shirt is basically just risk 'em up, and it's the little heart in the center of the screen with just like 20% of the health for the right side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll show it to you later, but it's basically supposed to emphasize like the game, right? So like you have the least amount of health, you have your full link on the left, and it's just like risk 'em up. Mm-hmm. Like just go for it, you know?
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So when you think you have nothing left, you just give it everything you can.
Right. That's really cool, actually. That sounds like a really awesome design. I really want to get one of those shirts now.
Yeah, totally, man. It's simple as hell, but it's solid. You know, like I think emphasize, I think is the wrong word, but like it shows what the game is immediately.
It showcases it kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Like, especially if you've kind of already played the game. If you just kind of see the shirt, you're just like, oh, what's that? But at the same time, I'm hoping that also makes you wonder, like, well, what's this? And then it causes that conversation of the dude wearing the shirt telling the person, you know, like, oh, it's this game. And then they get into it that way, right? But
exactly. You have that word of mouth within that community that plays the game and everything like that. It's just crazy. Because you said that you have a full-time position on top of making the game, right?
100%, yeah.
Okay. How really does that affect then the making of that of the game?
Oh man,
because I know for myself that with my full-time job doing games journalism and keeping up to a website and everything like that, it just crams everything into a little amount of time that I do have. So like, how does that affect then making a game instead of journalism?
Well, I mean, you know, like say for example, like in your situation, does your day job have anything to do with what you want to do on the side? Like is your day job in games journalism or is it?
No, unfortunately, it is not.
Right. So I don't know if you want to get into that at all, but so from my point of view is that, my day job has absolutely nothing to do with video games. So, and so the idea is basically it's just like you come home and don't get me wrong, dude, like you're tired. The last thing you want to do is just kind of like work on something. But at the same time, it's like, it depends on what you're working on. Right. And since I love working on this thing and just seeing how it's become what it has, it just pushes me to do it. So like, yeah, there are nights where I stay up till like 1 a.m. and then have to wake up at 6 the next day. And again, what helps there is that the job is completely like just menial and boring, where I could be half dead at work and then like still function. You know what I mean?
You got your caffeine, you got your food, and you got that inspiration to go back and finish that game and make it even better than what it currently is.
Right. So. And so the thing that kind of sucks there sometimes though is like, because you need the caffeine at the day job to stay awake, you're more awake at the day job than you are at home. So you're basically just kind of like jotting ideas of what you needed to fix and what you needed to work on and blah, blah, blah. And then when you come home, like you're on that like last flame, but you're just pushing yourself as much as possible to get what you needed done. Right. So like it definitely wears on you for sure. But yeah, just like meeting someone like you at PAX and stuff and just doing this kind of thing is just what helps you like just take as much out of that flame as possible. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
It'll burn out and then you have to just reignite it again. You know?
You got to get that gas. You know?
Oh yeah.
Maybe that caffeine might help give it a little gas. That's really cool. Nice. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, with myself too, just with trying to figure out really the time aspect, because luckily I do have a day or two throughout the week that I can do stuff like this, where I, can focus on it. But again, that passion, like this is what I want to do, that just pushes me even further. So that's really cool though that, even though you're, like you said, you're dead tired after you're done, you got to just keep on pushing forward. So that's awesome.
And then what definitely also helps, I don't know if this would help you in the sense of like basically what you're trying to accomplish. It might, I'm not 100% sure, but like starting up the Discord when I did the early access on Steam was like, I think possibly the smartest decision I've ever made in my life. Yeah. Because that Discord, that community that I've built up over the last year or so is just fucking awesome, dude. They're just like at each other's throat with scores and just like their conversation is just like super cool. And it's just an awesome community. It's like, they're
It's
just super rad, and it
it's
really
just
helps.
good for the community because the competition makes people go back to it, keep on
Right.
fighting, keep on getting a higher
Right.
score.
Yeah.
But speaking on that though, a question
Yeah.
just came up. So I did watch a video where I don't know where you were at. I think it was a convention, maybe it was PAX, but you had a person play the demo, and
Mm-hmm.
he got about like a billion score.
Right.
So what is then the limit on a game like this with the score? Is it infinite?
Oh
Is it
man.
endless? Or is,
Well,
is,
so
is there a cap?
are you familiar with coding at all, like just integers and all that kind of stuff?
No, I have
Okay.
not done any type of coding whatsoever. So,
Okay, cool. Well, I'll explain this again because I started this game with no programming whatsoever either. So I taught myself all this stuff.
oh, nice.
Uh,
Okay, cool.
yeah. So basically, I'll make the story as short as possible. But at PAX South last year, I was using what's called an integer 32, which is a normal integer in programming.
Okay.
And that number or that variable or whatever can only hold max signed anyway, which means positive and negative, 2 billion points basically.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was this dude was playing it, and he basically broke the number. So like it was called an overflow exception, I think. There was a programmer in the crowd of the people that was watching them, and that's when they explained it to me. I think what's happening is this, and I told him about integer, and we got into that conversation. So basically what happened was that guy reached the score, and when you reach that number, it wraps back around to negative and then goes back up to the max again, and it just keeps wrapping itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind
So
of like a snake almost in a way. Kind
yeah,
of.
yeah, like a snake eating itself in a way. It just keeps going back and forth, and we started seeing the score be negative, and then all of a sudden it would jump positive. It was acting all weird, and I was like, "What the hell is happening?" So again, there was a programmer in the crowd. We started talking about it, and he let me know that's what it was.
Okay.
So what I ended up doing was I went back, and once I learned what that was, I started using now an int 64, which is basically double whatever that would be. So the max score, which I wouldn't be surprised someone would break it eventually. I don't think it'd be anytime soon, but these dudes, again, Discord, they just nonstop trying to do it.
Yeah.
The max score now, I think, is about 9 quintillion.
Quintillion?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
It
gosh.
sounds like a lot, dude. But that's the thing is these guys are like nonstop. Like someone finally, I think it was like last week, reached a score of 1 quadrillion.
1 quadrillion.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that could also be a mix of like the massive bonuses that I give people, but you only get the massive bonuses when you've got super chaos going everywhere, which means that's the risk of dying. Mm-hmm. So the idea you have to remember also is that in order to mark your score on the leaderboard, you have to extract. So just because someone reaches like a super max score doesn't mean that's going to be marked, right?
Gotcha.
And that's kind of where like that greed starts to set in, is like, how much are you willing to risk to just be at the top of the leaderboard? And that's what these dudes are fighting for, which is super awesome.
So it's like risk and reward, back to that whole theme.
100,000%. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so just in the last 2 days, I've actually been reworking basically the point system. And because, so again, this goes back to breaking the leaderboard kind of thing. This dude Blaze on the Discord, who's the moderator, he's also been one of those dudes who's been nonstop playing it and getting really high scores. And he got the max integer, which was 32 again, on a single shot.
A single shot.
Exactly, because he was taking advantage of all the bonuses and stuff. So he broke the single shot integer. So now I had to go back in there and also change all of those, because all my individual points, I left it integer because I was like, no one's ever going to reach 2 billion points in a single shot,
right?
Let alone it happened. So I had to go back and switch that. And now that I switched that, now that means that's when this dude got a quadrillion score. But so that's what led me to go back and rethink the way your material is calculated, because when you sacrifice material, all right, because there's some bug in Windows 7 that just causes the game to crash on the title screen. So like you try to start a mission, it just crashes. Okay. So if it doesn't do that, it might be something else. We could debug that later if you want. I'd be more than happy to help you with that.
Of course.
Because
like I said, it's a fun game. So I mean, I'm totally down to keep on giving you as much advice and input as possible from a player's perspective.
100%.
Because
Yeah.
I have no idea of the code at all. So
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, there was someone who bought the game at Evo, and this really sucks because they're also on the Discord. They've been wanting to like play the game since then, but they were running Windows 7, and again, the just crashes. And they were on with me for like an hour one night, and I finally got them to test it in a way where I'm pretty sure I know what it is that's causing the Windows 7 crash, although it still might not be necessarily the game's fault, because there was an update to Windows 7 with like video codecs, I think, that happened.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, so I'll need to figure that out there.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, I'm always on Discord, so yeah.
Okay. I was going to ask as well with the Discord, if people do want to find out to get onto it, if they are having difficulties, what is the name of the Discord, so we could get that out there for people to get on.
Right on. So the cool thing is I do have a vanity Discord link, which is the easiest way to find it, which is just discord.gg/AskAnEnemyStudios.
Gotcha.
Just click that in your browser. You'll be right in.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And then also too, I don't want to keep you any longer here,
Right.
but with the game, is it possibly on console as well? Because I didn't check.
Yeah,
Okay.
it will be. So the plan right now is to be out of early access PS4, Xbox One, and Switch by late March.
By late March, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And then also too, with any upcoming events, I noticed that you are going to a few. Do you want to give a little bit more insight on that?
Yeah, totally. So I will be at South by Southwest March 15th through 18th. And then after that, I'll be at GDC. GDC, I'll just be demoing the game at different parts of GDC. So it's not like I have a booth this year. I'm just going to be kind of all over the place.
Gotcha.
And then the following week, I'll be at PAX East.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, March, what is that, 20...
end of March, I believe.
End of March, yeah, basically. People know PAX East if
right. I mean, Pax South I can understand because it's a little bit smaller. But East and West, like, come on. Everybody knows East and West. So.
Right on. Yeah, and then South by Southwest, like, it's just something, I don't know if you were there when I was talking about Austin Beef. It's just a way to be like, hey, man, El Paso makes video games too, you know?
I gotcha.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Okay.
it's a state beef kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, here in Chicago, we got that going. We got Cubs, White Sox, north, south, and then also to Nether Realms. I believe it's in Chicago as well.
Oh, right, yeah. Hell yeah. Realm, man. Yeah.
We got Mortal Kombat and some Injustice ready to go.
Hey,
so
yeah.
But now that reminds me again, before I let you go, with the whole Shaggy endeavor, with the petition to put him into Mortal Kombat 11, what is your take on it?
Yeah, dude, it's a Mortal Kombat-ass thing to do. I would have nothing again't that.
Yeah, would you pay
like
$4 to go download him as a downloadable character?
Well, I mean, yeah, like they've had like Freddy Krueger and Jason and all that kind of stuff. Like, why not? Yeah.
Okay. All right, fair point. Good.
I have nothing against Shaggy.
Well, Jaycee, thank you so much for talking with me, and thank you so much for giving some insight on your game there. And hopefully I'll be able to see you at one of the next conventions. I am looking to possibly go to PAX East. I don't know about GDC, but if anything, we can do another Skype call and we can talk more about it.
But yeah, definitely, man. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, actually, to be the first. So that's cool.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to keep this train rolling, and I'll be able to keep on interviewing some really cool video games and really cool people. So.
Hell yeah, man. The only way to do it is to do it.
Exactly, right? Hey, keep on going and keep on making great games, okay?
Right on, man.
Hey, have a good one.
Thanks.